Fallout by Limesicle on AO3. Summary. Katsuki does everything the hard way. Falling in love isn't an exception. It takes him long to realize he's falling, but it takes him 10 years to admit it to himself. It takes another 10 before he says it out loud. It didn't take long for him to realize. It started earlier, a few years after his quirk manifested, and Deku's didn't. It starts with things like kicking other bullies out of the way. He doesn't think about it, doesn't hesitate. Katsuki never hesitates, and never thinks about the things he doesn't want. Except, he does. He tells himself Deku is a pebble on his path, quirkless, useless. But like a nice skipping stone, he picks up that pebble and throws it, then wishes he had it back. Unlike a skipping stone, Deku comes back. He hates that Deku watches him. Well, not just him. Deku has an interest in heroes that borders on obsession. Katsuki doesn't know what the fuck he's writing in those stupid notebooks all the damn time, but he knows Deku is writing and writing and writing. Katsuki is smart, but so is Deku. Katsuki is natural, but Deku works hard. With the stigma he grows up with, Deku builds an invisible wall between him and his childhood friend. Kachan is at the head of the class. He's smart and strong and everything else anyone should want to be, but he's also brash and abrasive. He's got a personality as violent as his quirk, and he has a mouth that can explode just as loudly, too. Deku knows this. He has it written down. He watches Katsuki's quirk evolve from little bursts of lights to explosions that could take down a building. He watches Kachan and idolizes him in ways that don't quite make sense. Yes, he looks up to the blonde, but the way Katsuki borders on the edge of villainy irks him. Kachan is amazing, there's no doubt about that, but he's imperfectly so rashly perfect. Deku unconsciously follows him. Maybe it's because he's drawn to Katsuki's brightness like a moth to light. Whatever it is, he's always a couple steps behind Katsuki, close enough to catch him if he stumbles. Enough if he does. All he gets is a glare if he's lucky. Every time Deku reaches out a hand to help Katsuki stand, it's slapped away. Still, Katsuki thinks that if the hand weren't there, it would hurt more than it should. He does nothing to make Deku follow him, other than glare at him every day. It's a painful pattern, but it's the pattern they have. They grew up close, but worlds apart. Katsuki wants to be the number one, just like All Might. He knows Deku well enough to know that's what he wants too. Ridiculous fucking stupid. Deku is quirkless. There's no way he could be a hero. Never mind a hero to top All Might. But Katsuki can. He can claw his way up to the top and forget everything else. Except, he can't. The person who matches him in determination is the person he's least likely. It's the person he wants to match determination with, or associate with at all, except it's not. He wants to reach the top. He wants that hand to be there when he stumbles. But he doesn't need that. Not really. Or so he tells himself. Katsuki builds himself up. He was born confident, and he has reasons for every single bit of that confidence. He still stops at some point. He's scared of losing, but he's also scared of reaching the top, just to see that he'd left everything important behind. Katsuki internalizes every single insecurity and covers it up with words and fake confidence that turns real. He needs Deku, but he hates it. He wants Deku, and he hates that too. If he leaves his childhood friend behind, he leaves behind the one person who will always be a step behind him. It's a leap of faith he doesn't want to take. It's a leap of faith he has to take. He's forced to, when Deku gets his own quirk, when Deku starts to catch up to him, when Deku starts to look at him with something other than fear. It should be nice the first time Deku genuinely smiles at him, just at him. But it's not. That's the annoying pounding in his chest that he swears has to be careful to ignite. Not to mention the clench in his stomach. What the fuck? Deku isn't supposed to smile like that. Not where he could see it, at least. Deku is changing, but so is Katsuki. He's not sure whether it's a good thing or bad thing. And there it is. Indescribable insecurity. Weakness. There's a million things Katsuki is unsure of, and a million things he pretends he's confident in. His confidence may have started naturally, but it has built up 1,000-fold since then. It's built up on things he reassures himself of. He's smart. He's strong. He'll be number one. If he recognizes Deku, he brings a wrecking ball crashing through the walls of his confidence. So he goes on trying to look past the Deku, whose name is something more than an insult. When Katsuki looks at Deku, he sees someone who has strengths when, by all reason, he should have none. That disparity eats him up. Why does Deku stand up when all odds are against him? Not just once, but 100 times. Why does Deku, bottom of the heap, reach out a hand to him when he falters for just a second? These questions rattle around in Katsuki's head, and he can't fucking shut them out. When Deku charges in to save him, he sees someone who should be paralyzed with fear. He knows he would be if he didn't have his quirk. And, oh, maybe that's why. If he wasn't strong, he would be... Fuck. If he didn't have a quirk, he would have given up. But he does. Don't worry about ifs. Don't fucking worry about ifs. But every time he sees Deku, he fucking does. It doesn't take long for him to realize that he didn't hate Deku. But it took Katsuki nearly a whole fucking decade to admit it to himself. It took another decade to admit it to someone else. Not Deku, of course. How the fuck would he tell Deku that anyways? No, the first person he admitted it to was Ochako. The girl most of the class thought Deku would fall for back in their UA days. They have been a thing for a while. When Katsuki found out, he blew up the notebook with his homework in it. He didn't ask her why it didn't work. He didn't want to know, anyways. During those years, Deku had been building confidence in different ways than Katsuki did. During those years, he was figuring out who he was when he had faith in himself. During those years, he spent every day overturning the childhood where he had been an ant under Katsuki's foot. Ochako is gentle and soft on the surface. Even as a young adult, her cheeks are still round and pink. Her hair has a spring to it, like it always has, a bit of anti-gravity in it. When Katsuki first saw her, he didn't think she'd be anything much. Turns out, he was wrong about that too. She could be a fucking demon if she wanted to. Not that she usually did. That day, she did. It would have been nicer if she tried out every one of his fingernails. Instead, she pulled out the tangles of his insecurities. No doubt, she's gotten a picture of them from Deku, and trusted in him being a pro hero and being duty-bound not to kill her. He managed not to. The delicate scaffold on his self-confidence was left without any supports. It would have been easier if she yelled. Instead, she spoke in a quiet voice as she shoved a knife in him and twisted it. She told him things he already knew, but somehow hearing them drove their message deeper. It would have been easier if every time he was in a pinch, he glanced around for a head of green hair that wasn't there. It would be easier if he was wholeheartedly consumed with being ranked number 1. It would be easier if he wasn't in love with Deku. But he was. At the age of 26, he finally said it out loud. I don't know why the fuck I love him, but I do. That brought him an awkward silence, and a pat on the shoulder that he absolutely did not want, but maybe needed. In that silence, he had time to count. The number of times he made Deku cry, uncountable. The number of times he yelled in his face, uncountable. The number of times Deku had saved him, uncountable. The age he was when he realized he was in love, 16. The age he was when he said it out loud, 26. The number of years since he'd been face to face with Deku, 9. The number of times he thought he was about to track down his generational symbol of peace, uncountable. Maybe he wasn't so good at counting after all. Ochako didn't say anything after that, but she didn't need to. She left a piece of paper with a number on it scribbled in writing that wasn't hers. It had been 9 years since he'd seen that scrawling on chalkboard in their UA classroom. It took him half a second to recognize it. It would be simple to incinerate the scrap of paper and go back to trying not to think about Deku. It would be hell of a loss, simple to put the number in his phone. He'd never been one to shy away from challenges, not when they were stuck right under his nose. It took him until Ochako walked out the door and closed it to pick up his phone and call. He wasn't scared. Not at all. Not one bit. Hey, you fucking nerd. 9 years. And that's the first thing he says. You're a genius, Bakugo. Kachan? Nothing's changed. Not at the first glance. They're both comfortable and disconcerting. Maybe if he didn't trip himself with his own pride, he'd fucking get somewhere. Deku's always been forgiving. That's another thing he really fucking hates. In some ways, Katsuki has great self-control. In others, he has none. Talking to Deku is apparently one of the ways he has none. He starts with a mess of swearing and a few spar apologies, then he starts again. He's always been smart, but never with words. It's nearly impossible to figure out sentences that work when his mind is doing anything but. Deku is patient. He fucking hates that too. In 20 minutes, all Katsuki does is barely manage to apologize for being a dick. Then he hangs up. There's only so much time he could spend being out of character. The next villain he meets ends up being a little more pulverized than necessary. Shit. He apologizes half-heartedly when he brings the villain in. He wonders if he'll get in trouble if he wasn't one of the top-ranked heroes. Oops. There he goes with the ifs. Katsuki doesn't sleep that night. Since he talked with Deku, things inside him are rearranging. He wasn't exactly comfortable with where he was before, but changing is definitely uncomfortable. Change due to Deku is worse. Katsuki finds himself consoling Ijiro within days. He didn't mean to, but Ijiro is one of the few people he actually is close with. Ijiro also happens to be friends with Deku. The redhead does his best to give advice, and Katsuki does his best to listen. But most useful thing he gathers from the conversation is that neither of them know shit about romance. Katsuki leaves more frustrated than when he started. It doesn't help when Deku calls him. Deku starts calling him randomly just to chat. It always starts with Kachan. He calls with Katsuki is patrolling the city. He calls when Katsuki is shopping at the grocery store. Or when he's just fucking sat down for dinner. Katsuki doesn't have the guts to bring up anything personal, so he listens to Deku chatter about whatever happened that day and then hangs up. It's a different routine than what they had in school. They're both older and maybe a little wiser for it. Katsuki's still volatile. Deku's still a fucking nerd. Not much has changed, but at the same time, everything has. The first one to bring up meeting in person is Deku. It's a simple, I'll be in your neighborhood on Friday. but it turns Katsuki's world upside down. Talking on the phone was fine, but meeting? No fucking way. What the fuck is he supposed to do? He ends up slamming the phone on the table instead of answering. Katsuki has to buy a new one to call Deku back. When they meet, it's not as bad as he thought it would be. Sure, his palms are a little sweaty, but he has his quirk under control, so no problem. When he looks at Deku, he sincerely questions why the ever-loving fuck he's in love with him. Deku's face is average, but it's still the face of peace in place of All Might. He doesn't have the same charisma, but there's a certain strength in his smile. In person, Deku is still scrawny. He's bone and muscle, hands merged by countless scars. Still, when he looks at Deku, there's nothing he would change. You know, I've missed you, Kachan. Whatever words Katsuki has are stuck somewhere, he can't reach them. He doesn't have a good answer for that anyways, and he can't meet Deku's eyes. Where'd all his confidence go? Deku sits at one end of the park bench, and Katsuki sits at the other. It's been 9 years since they were in the same place. He clasps his hands together and tries to act normal. What the fuck is normal anyways? He's certainly far from it when around Deku. It doesn't take long for Katsuki to realize he really liked Deku. And 2 whole fucking decades later, Deku's the one who confesses first. I was really happy you called. Katsuki can feel the scar that cuts through Deku's palm. He could feel hands shaking. He sees Deku's gaze, unwavering even though he's terrified. He hates it. I really like you, Kachan. He puts his hands on Deku's face, one on each side. Deku's cheeks are pale and thin. They've lost their baby fat, but they're still soft. He hesitates for a moment before leaning forward. The kiss he pressed to Deku's lip is short but strong, explosive. Shut the fuck up. The next time he leans forwards, they meet in the middle. Katsuki doesn't really know what he's doing, but like anything else, he's a natural. The kiss leaves his head spinning. I really fucking like you too, Deku. After all these years, there's still Kachan and Deku. Okay, I really like this author's writing style. It's a very flowy writing style that I really enjoy. I enjoyed that. I'm, after this, gonna go see if I could get some more of their, if not right after this, because I have to record more, a bit later. I noted down the author's name because I really do like this type of writing style, and I feel like this author really encapsulated, is that a word? I don't know. Is that the appropriate word? Whatever it is. Really, like, encapsulated Katsuki as a character and what I think he would probably think of. You know, the whole confidence facade kind of thing. Well, underneath, he's really an insecure, insecure, period. I don't know what I was going to add on that, but I really feel like this author is able to understand Katsuki's character and is able to portray that in a way that flows. And I genuinely enjoyed reading that. I love the author's writing style. Author, if you're listening to this, I really enjoyed your writing style. I hope I pronounced your username right. I have some trouble with people's usernames sometimes. This is one of them. Literally, I had to text 20 friends. I don't have 20 friends. I have one. I have 4. I texted 4 of my friends. I have very little friends. Dude, I used to be the type of person that had many, many friends. And by friends, I mean people who just knew your name kind of thing. But yeah, anyways, I had a little bit of a hard time pronouncing your name. So if you're listening to this, tell me if I pronounced your username correctly or not. And I would love to do more of your fanfics. I'm gonna, either after this or the day after this, or in a couple days, see other of your fanfics to see if I could podfic some. I'll comment. Be watching up for my comments. Because I really did enjoy this writing style. And this was a nice, cute story. I I want to know the follow-up. I want to see more. I'm left craving more, but also feeling satisfied, which is something I don't normally feel in one-shots. I feel like in one-shots, you either feel like, oh, like you're satisfied, right? And like, oh, this was cute, whatever, right? But most of the time, I feel like, at least for me, I feel like I am left wanting more, right? And in this one, it's a mixture of, I want more, but I'm satisfied with what I have, which is really rare for me. So I really enjoyed your writing style and the way you paced the story, because it was in a good sense where you're left wanting more, but at the same time being content with not having more, which is a really difficult job to do. So kudos to you. Let me leave a kudos. Hold up. There you go. I left the kudos. So yeah, and as always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content. And thank you so much for watching.